Hi, and welcome to this PowerShell video on the PSWriteHTML module. We have already seen how to generate the actual HTML pages and create some nice tables very simply with this module. But this module actually has a lot more capabilities to it. One of them we'll be seeing today, which is actually the ability to create Visio-like diagrams. So very useful if you need to create a network diagram or map out a process of all the different steps in that process. I'll show you guys how you can make a diagram purely from scratch, like just putting in the nodes and connecting the different nodes. But I'll also show you guys a scripted method where we're actually going to take this file directory and generate a Visio diagram for this folder structure that you can actually use anywhere afterwards to map out your own folder structures at work or at home in a test lab or anything like that. So let's go ahead and let's take a look. And just one thing to note, I did not create this module. This module was created by someone else, and I give full credit to them for that as well. Also in the description, I will also be pasting a link to some of the tutorials that they have posted. They're all text-based, but they are very good. This is what I used to actually learn the module. I'm just making these videos to kind of spread this module out because I think this module has a lot of uses and is very useful for me anyways, and potentially a lot of other people. So let's go ahead and let's create our first diagram here, which is just going to be a very simple diagram. We're just going to put two nodes and we're going to connect those two nodes together and just see how easy it is to create a very simple Visio diagram here. So let's go ahead and let's create a new HTML. This is always how we kind of start these. And we are going to say that we want to be online. So this is going to link to the online JavaScript and CSS. And what we're going to do here now is we're just going to do an open curly bracket and closing curly bracket. And then we're going to do a new HTML diagram. And once again, we're just going to do an open and close curly bracket. And then in here, what we're going to do is we're going to do a new diagram node. What I like to do is I like to put the ID and the label. So we're going to put the ID here as first. And then the label, we are going to just go ahead and put first. And then I like to create a second one here. So we're going to do a new diagram node here. And we are going to do the ID. We are going to put in second. And then the label, we're going to put in second. Now, you don't actually need to put the ID, but the label is required. I just like to put the ID because eventually, as you will see in the next part, we put a more complicated ID in the label. I like to keep it short. This way, it's very easy to actually read and follow along on the browser and following that diagram. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to link these two nodes together. So we're going to do a new diagram link, and we're going to do the from. So we are going to say it is from the second node, or actually we're going to link it from the first node. And then we're going to say it goes to the second node. And then what we can actually add to as well is the arrows to enabled. So let's go that here. So this will actually put the arrow in here. And all we're going to do is after the new HTML, we're just going to go ahead and put the show HTML parameter here. Let's go ahead and let's run this. And there it is. It already created us the Visio diagram basically. And you can actually move these around. It's got full physics. So by default, if you don't change anything, you can actually completely drag these around. So there is our first little diagram. So this was a very simple example. Now, of course, you can definitely add some more. So if we actually go ahead, copy this, let's add in a bird node here. And let's actually say that the bird node is actually connected from the first and second. You can actually put in an array here and do it's coming in from the first and the second to the third node. So if we go ahead and we run this here, we will see that here is the third node. It is linked by the second and the first one. We can see the two little arrows. The first connects to the second. So the only way to get to number 2, you have to be number 1. But if you want to get to number 3, you can go there from either the first or the second. So there is our simple diagram. So now let's go ahead and let's jump into actually making the diagram of our folder structure. And just before I start here, as you kind of noticed when we generate this, it does get generated with a temporary file. So what I also like to do here is I like to just create a HTML output variable. And we are just going to copy the path of our folder here. I'm going to paste that in there. And we are going to put that as HTML, or just actually test.html. And then in the new HTML, what we're going to do here is the file path to HTML output. And if we actually go ahead and we run this code now, we will see that it actually generates that HTML file. And we'll actually see that the HTML file is actually saved here. And you could go in and look at it if you would like. So that is perfect. So let's go ahead and let's create the one for our root structure here, our whole folder structure. So the first thing that we need to do is define our root element here. So I'm going to name this root. So we're going to create a variable called root. And we are just going to copy the path here. And then what I'm going to do is do a new HTML. And we're going to once again use online. We're going to point it to the file path right away. Open and close curly bracket. And we're going to do a new HTML diagram. And let's do an open and close curly bracket. And let's go ahead and let's see how we would actually do this. So the first thing that we need to do is, of course, we need to get the files and put in our first node, which is our root node. So what I like to do here is actually just go ahead and create a variable called files. And we're going to make that equal to get child item for the path of root. And we want to recurse. So we want to get the entire folder structure here. We want to get the entire tree. And then what I'm going to do right away is do a new diagram node. And for the ID, we are going to go ahead and put that as root. And the label, we are actually just going to put that as the text of root here. And then we are going to do a for each file in files. We're going to open and close curly bracket. So now we have two things that we need to actually worry about here is we need to know if something is a folder or if something is a file. I like to know both of these. You need to distinguish the difference just to be able to get what the parent object is. You're going to notice that once I actually get a little bit further in here. So what we want to do here is if we actually just let's initiate this variable, and we're going to initiate this code just so we can actually see what is inside of file. So we have file, and we have the dot notation here. We have a PS is container. This will tell us whether a file that we have, in our case, it's just all the items that we're getting from get child item, is a folder or not. So what we want is if the file.ps is container is equal to true, then we're going to do something. Otherwise, we're going to do something else. So if it is a folder, what we need to do is we need to do a new diagram node. We're going to do the label, or sorry, we're going to do the ID first. The ID that we're going to use, that I like to use, is the file dot full name. So I'm just going to make sure I reference my file object here. And then what I like to do as the label is just the file dot name. I don't want the full name because eventually, depending on your folder path, this could get quite long and make the diagram look a little bit messy. And then what we're going to want to do is this new diagram link. Now, and then we're going to do the from. So we want it to go from the parent to the child. So what we actually need to do is grab the actual parent of this folder. So what we're going to do here is if we do file dot, and then this one will actually have a parent here. And it is a little bit hard to tell. So what we're going to do is do a file dot. We're going to do this here. So let's grab a folder equals get child's item path root and then directory. So if we just do folder here, so here we're going to have our two folders. So if we look at folder and we look at the first one in the list here, we're going to see that we have a parent, and that will actually point us to the root. So what we need to do here is file.parent.full name. And then the two will actually just be this one that we just created, which is just the file.full name. Well, that's perfect. But now if we actually go ahead and see what it is for a file here, so let's go ahead and let's pick file here, and let's look. I know that the variable I used is still called folder, so we don't have anything there. So let me actually just go ahead and let's just run this code. This will actually end up being a file at the end, anyways. So if we look at this file here, we have this test 222, which is right here. So if we go ahead and we look at this item now, so we have test.222, and we go file.parent, we actually get nothing back. And that is because when it is a file, it's actually different. We're actually going to be looking at the file.directory, and that will tell us the parent of that file. So that's why we need this little if statement to actually determine whether or not it is a folder that we're looking at or a file that we're looking at. So we're going to do a new diagram node here. And this actually is exactly the same. So we just want to put the ID as the full name and the label as the actual name. And then the new diagram link, what we want to do is we want to do a from. And this is where we want to do the file.directory.full name. And then the two, we just want to point it towards itself here. And that should be good. And the only thing that we want to actually do as well is I like to add the arrows to enabled. And this way we just know right away what exactly we're kind of looking at. And then we just want to add our show HTML at the bottom here. And let's see what this actually ends up looking like. So if we actually go ahead and we generate this here, we will see that we do get a Visio diagram, but now it does look, it's a little bit messy. Like we can definitely follow along with it. Now, thankfully we have the short names, but imagine if we were seeing like C users, my username, and then root, it would be like C scripts, quick tips, PS write HTML diagram, root, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. That's why I like to keep the label and the ID slightly different. It just means I can really make it nice and clean here. So what we actually want to do is make this a little bit more of a standard Visio diagram where root would actually be at the top or at the left, and then we can follow along and see really that tree structure that we're used to seeing. So we can actually do that. So what we first want to do is actually determine how we can do the different layouts and the different physics here. So what we actually want to do is in this new HTML diagram, if we hit enter here, we can actually do a new diagram options physics. And then we're going to do enabled equals true. And then we're going to do some hierarchical repulsion avoid overlap. And we're going to set that to 1. And we're also going to do the last thing here, which is the hierarchical repulsion node distance. And we're going to set this. I don't like to set this too high. Let's set this to 50 to start. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a new diagram options layout. And we want to enable the hierarchical enabled is going to be equal to true. And then the hierarchical direction is going to be from up to down. So it's going to go from the top to the bottom. And then, so that should be good for now. And now what we actually need to do is tell on what hierarchy are the different levels. But what we need to do is actually determine what the starting option is. So for the new diagram node, we actually have something that's called level. And I like to start this level at level 0. This means it will be at the absolute top in our case, from up to down. So what I like to do here is just create another variable called root level. And we're going to make this equal to root dot split. And we're going to split on the backslash here. And we're going to do a dot count. Now you might be wondering why exactly we're doing this. This gets me the hierarchy or the actual folder placement of where that root level is. So there's already 5 folders in, like 5 levels in when we're at the root level. So this will be the start. So this will be our root level, which is going to be 5, which is perfectly fine. So this is where we actually want to start here. So we're going to put in our root level for our root. And then what we would actually want is to do the same thing now for all the different folders and the different files. So what we actually create here is just a level variable. And we're going to make this equal to the, so what we can actually do is instead of putting it inside the if statement here, instead of putting it twice, we can actually generate the variable here, put level equals the file dot full name dot split. And we're going to split once again on the backslashes count. And we're going to minus the root level. So this way we just get the difference between the root level and so actually we need to put this to 0 because this is always 0 here. And then once we actually have that, that will tell us, so once we're 1 folder in, that will be 1. Once we're 2 folders in, that will actually be 2. And then we can do the, in the new diagram node, we're going to put level, and we're just going to map it to our level variable here. And if we actually go ahead now and we run this code, let's just see if it actually ends up working as expected. There it is. So there is our root here and our folders here. our folders. We could move them, but as you can see with the physics, it does keep everything kind of together. And so that is where it is. Now, let's say you didn't want to give this HTML page to someone and they just wanted a actual picture of it. You can actually even right click on it and then save the image. And if we save the image here, you can actually open up the image and someone can actually go in and look at it themselves. Now, it does get a little blurry. I would definitely recommend just giving them the HTML page. Once again, you could probably host this on a simple web server, generate these pages, and then give it to the manager or whoever is asking for these diagrams. But some other ideas that you can actually do with this is if you grab all your users in Active Directory, and say you want to grab all the users in Active Directory who don't have a manager. That would mean that they are at technically the root level, and then you can get everyone that they manage and then grab all of those people and grab if they manage anyone, and then you can actually build out a hierarchy of your entire enterprise from the information in your AD and be able to actually make sure that everything is actually properly set. Maybe you'll find that some people aren't managed properly in Active Directory and be able to change that. You can also make mappings of different groups to see where they point to. You can make a network diagram as well, or make all custom diagrams. Maybe you don't want to scan anything in, you just want to actually make a diagram without Visio. This is actually a very great tool. You can build it all through code and actually have a very nice Visio diagram at the end of it. So I would definitely recommend giving this module a look. There is a lot more capabilities that we're going to be taking a look at. Hopefully you guys liked these little Visio diagrams here. And if you guys have any comments or questions, please let me know in the comments section down below. I'll try my best to answer every single one of you, or if it's something that will benefit a lot of people, we can go ahead and make a video on it to benefit the whole community. Once again, thank you guys for watching. Please remember to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out, and I will see you guys on the next video.